Good. This is the continuation of what we learned in Parsha Ki Teitzei. What we learned. This is the second paragraph. What are we talking about? Yesterday we talked about war. War, says the Rebbe. Now the main war is with ourselves. Our whole attitude, our whole connection to the Creator of the universe. According to Judaism, the reason that the Jewish people are here is to educate the whole world. This is only actually going to happen in actuality with Mashiach, but we have to educate. What are we supposed to educate the world to do? What are we supposed to? How to feel God, how to feel our purpose in the world, how to feel the meaning in every moment, the miracle that's in every situation, the amazing gift that life is, and how it's all being given by God. And how God gives us responsibility and He gives us power to fill this responsibility. And that's really true happiness. A person feels his true uniqueness when he's connected to the Creator of the universe. Just one moment, let me just 1 minute. We said that the main way to wage this war against who's the enemy? The enemy is our own selfishness. The enemy is our own egotism. The enemy is our own, how do you say, what do we call it? Comfort zones and certainty that we know it all and everything is okay, and that's all there is to the world is what we see. But the fact of the matter is it's not so. And really this applies to every facet of life. I mean, people have to learn. You have to learn from somebody how to be a musician, how to be a mechanic, how to be a doctor, how to be a lawyer. They have universities in order to teach people things they don't know. A person can't just be free as a bird to, do whatever he wants to and eat from the garbage cans or whatever. I mean, you can if you want to, but it's not much of a world. So God put us in the world in order to improve the world and improve ourselves. So first of all, we have to improve ourselves. But a lot of times that means you have to fight a war. What's the idea of a war? A war is usually fought against someone who wants to control you. Usually. Wants to rob you, wants to take your things from you, wants to put you in imprisonment and servitude. A war. If it's just somebody you disagree with, it's, you can say a war of words. That's not really a war. A war is when somebody is impinging, he's attacking you. So that's the way it is. We are being imprisoned by our own thoughts, our own desires, our own urges, our own misconceptions. And nowadays, that's not such an amazing thing to say. I mean, that's very acceptable that there's, these, what is it called, the self-help, or in these seminars, and, what is it, the methods of coaching that a person that you have to look at things differently and feel differently and react differently and act differently and have different values and different characters. That's basically what all the religions are trying to do, at least in the world, to give you sort of a bigger picture of what's going on. Okay, so what the Rebbe is saying over here is that there's a creator, and the creator is infinitely more real than we are. He's creating us, and our reality comes from him. He's creating us, and he loves us, the creator, and he's giving us all these responsibility and empowering us to do this responsibility, but we have to use it ourselves. So it said before, every Jew, that's the Jewish people. The Jewish people are here to teach the world that there is such a thing as God, and that God loves us, God cares about us, God is empowering us, he's, how do you say, challenging us. Everything in the world is a challenge, it's a miracle. And every Jew has what's called a godly soul inside. And this godly soul is a certainty that God exists. And this godly soul, which is in the Jewish people, it's like the Holy of Holies. No doubt that God exists. Of course, the problem is once a person feels this, that God exists, then it just increases his challenge. It doesn't say, oh, God exists and that's it. When the Jews received the Torah in Mount Sinai, after all the miracles, they were sure that God existed. They worshiped the golden calf. In other words, the challenges become even greater. The responsibility becomes greater, and the power, it's like you go up to the minor leagues to the major leagues. You have more power, but the challenges are greater. The opposition is greater. It says the Rebbe, so we have this godly soul, and the godly soul is certain 100% that God exists. And what it means is certain that God exists is that God is really all that really exists. How should the world be? Just like we look at God now, that's how we should be in the future, look at ourselves. We look at God now, that God is a big miracle if he exists at all, and he's, something, way up there. How exactly he relates to the world, we don't know. It should be the other way around. For sure, God exists. And the question is how we exist. We're the big miracle, and how we can fit into the whole picture. That's the question. But God's existence is for sure. There's no doubt about it. That's the way it should be. When we look at things that way, then we don't get angry, and we don't get depressed, and we don't get frustrated, and we realize that everything is just, it's God's world. And God wants us to react properly and to accept the challenge, and etc. Okay. So the time when we actually activate this whole business, and we, so to speak, how do you say, prod the sleeping bear that's in the hibernating, which is our natural animal soul, to wake it up, that's when we pray. Well, as soon as you start to pray, all of a sudden there's bizarre thoughts come popping into your mind, and you can't think. You don't want to think about God. What do I have to think about God? I'll just say the words, and that's it, finish it. I'm doing more than most people do, more than what I want to do. Say the words, right? But the idea is, no, prayer is supposed to be not with your mouth, not only with your mouth, it's supposed to be with your heart. Same thing with all the sacrifices, right? Someone sent me this whole big, I think from Isaiah, that God said, I don't want your sacrifices anymore. You're disgusting. But that was one of the haftorahs we had just recently. It doesn't mean God doesn't want the sacrifices. It's like he doesn't want our prayers. He doesn't want it to be done in a cold way. He doesn't want us to think that that's it. We've done it. Huh? We've done the like the guy goes to the rabbi and he says, I just smashed my next door neighbor's window. What should I do? He says, well, you have to make reparations. How much did the window cost? $100. He says, okay, take $1,000. I said, 100, not 1,000. He says, no, I want to break all of his windows. I'm going to break them all. Take the money. You can't prepay, for the sins. The whole idea of going to the sacrifices and it is your heart. That's the point. It's the heart. But you have to do the sacrifices. Yeah, the sacrifices are necessary. But don't think that that's all, that it's sufficient to do that. But you have to do it, of course. It's like a person that just feeds his children and he doesn't have to love them. I feed them, I give them clothes, and that's it. Let them leave me alone. Right? That's not enough. So you say, okay, so I'll just love them and I won't feed them. That's also ridiculous. I'll just love God and I won't do the commandments. God wants the commandments. He wants the sacrifices. But it has to be done in a way of our heart. And that's the whole thing of prayer. And prayer is what brings this godly soul, what's called the fire from above, on the altar to burn up the offerings. Here we go. Hine, behold, today in order that should be drawn down the timshach, this fire from above that was on the altar, right in the temple. It was the altar. The fire came from heaven, and it ate up the sacrifices. But nevertheless, they had to bring also fire from below. They had to make fire on the altar. There were 3, 4, orders of wood that they would make a fire. Fires were going all the time. Eish tamid, fire all the time was burning. In order to bring this fire from above, so mitzvah lavim mehedyu, the people had to bring it on their own from below. Al yedei teruta dilatata, by means of an arousal from below. What do we have to do to arouse from below? We have to bring a sacrifice from below. What do we bring? What do we do? Cut off a toe? What are we supposed to do? Nowadays, there is no sacrifices. Says the Rebbe, yes, there is. How do we offer up the sacrifice? By hitbonenut, by means of contemplating, thinking about things you wouldn't usually think about. Just like an animal usually would not stray into the holy temple and get sacrificed, also a person's mind does not happen to stray into thinking about God. You have to really make an effort. Hitbonenut means to use your understanding deeply. And think. What are you supposed to think about? Where do I come from? How am I here? Where am I coming from? Where is my soul? Where's my life coming from? But Makar Chutzpah, the place where it was carved out from, Shorsha and the Merkav Elyon. Remember, we talked about the upper chariot of God. That from this was taken the power of the animal soul. So that's what we have to do, is take the animal soul, sacrifice it, and then the godly soul comes in. You get what do we call it? Inspiration. But first of all, you have to take your animal soul, which is your, we said before, capital I, or your me, yourself, and start thinking about God, about the Creator. Is there really a Creator that's really creating me? Where does this animal come from? Animal soul come from? It comes from, it says, the animals around this chariot, the animals around the chariot of God that Ezekiel saw and that Isaiah saw. These animals are totally negated to the throne that they're lifting up. Lagabi Damut Adam, and that's also negated the throne with the animals to the man that's sitting on the throne. That was part of the vision. It says this man that was sitting on the throne, that's God's, how do you say, configuration of godliness, how it is in the world of Atzilut. That's pretty impressive, huh? The world of Atzilut, there are 4 worlds, which are really 4 dimensions. And we're only vaguely aware of the lowest of these dimensions. But the fact of the matter is that there's 4 dimensions of reality, each one more real than the one below it. This world is called Asiya. Really, it's called physical Asiya. Then there's the spiritual Asiya. And then there's what's called Yetzirah. Yetzirah is like the world of the angels. Then there's Bria, that's the world of the souls. Then the worlds of Atzilut. The world of Atzilut, that's the world of, it's like pure godliness, not God himself, but godliness. It says that all these angels, these animals that are lifting up this throne that godliness is sitting on, right? It's a lower dimension, lifting up the earth. It says that they sweat, the chalim mechela kisei, and they, whatever is they pass out or whatever from the heat, from the energy of this throne. Umitlahavin, and they burn up and they're inflamed. This is hinted at also in the Song of Songs. In flaming fire, to be included in the light of God, which is flowing to them. Flowing to them. It was the famous thing when I remember, it just popped into my mind, when the American forces pulled out of what is it? Of Vietnam. Saigon, I think they pulled out. And they gave it over to the communists. So everybody was worried that the communists are going to kill everybody. I mean, what exactly happened, I don't know. But anyway, so people wanted to live. They didn't know what to do. So they ran after the planes that were leaving. And they grabbed on like to the wheels and to this, and the planes took off. And of course, these people couldn't hold on. It was the wind, and it was cold, and they fell off. They died. But still, the point is that they grabbed onto anything they could to keep alive. They realized that it was their life. Well, that's what the angels are up in heaven. They realize that God is their life. And so they're screaming, they're crying to do anything just to they're burning up just to get closer and closer to God. Something like people go crazy and nowadays for money and for this. But that, so therefore, when you think about where does my animal soul, where does my life come from? It comes from the same place as these angels. And what are these angels doing? These angels which are around the throne, the face of the lion, and the face of the this, what are they doing? They realize what God is, and they're burning up to God because they realize how real God is. And what about me, my animal soul? It could care less. So automatically, when you start to think about this, you turn your mind to the source of the soul, suddenly you become energized. Yo'ir or ahava, there's a tremendous love. Gam al koach hamisave, even the power of desire of your soul, of your animal soul. Shenilkach misham, that was taken from them, from there, from the angels up there. La'orer libo, to arouse a person's heart. Liod netak betanugim, and to remove himself from all physical pleasures. Asher nishka b'hem, that he was sunk in them. to be drawn after his source, will be batal the club or so to be included in the light of God. Huh? So that's the source of your soul. Sometimes you can see this a little bit. I don't know if this is a good example, but if you go, I mean, don't think, I really like music. I love music very much. I went to a few concerts or things like that, but sometimes you hear this beautiful music, violin, it just really knocks you out. So I remember I went to some concerts or whatever, and people came there, and when the concert goes on, if the person that's playing is really good, so everybody's like hypnotized. And nobody, I remember, I'll tell you, I was in the University of Michigan, and I remember Ravi Shankar. You have any idea that he was a famous sitar player from India, and he played the sitar. I don't really even know if it's permissible to listen to that music because I think it's like Hindu music and it's devoted to the gods or whatever they do. But in any case, I did listen to it. I don't know if I didn't ask. I wasn't even religious, and it was hypnotizing. He played one song, it was like for three hours, and when he stopped, everybody said, "Man, we've just been hypnotized, Maybe we were hypnotized." But somewhere down there in the middle, somebody tried to talk to somebody. There was no cellular phones there, and everyone just went berserk. Just telling him to be quiet. I mean, this guy. How can you? People like to talk. People enjoy talking. Let the guy talk. He says, "No, the pleasure from listening to this music was so great." That to talk that something was so banal and so stupid and so low that who would want to? I don't know if that's a good example, but I'm just saying the angels feeling God is so real and so pure, so sweet to them that they're burning up for God. So when our animal soul starts to think about this, the angels, they're so interested and they're so powerful. The angels, this is an angel is 1/3 of the universe, whatever it means, and they're burning up to God. And what am I burning up for? Some money, another zero in my bank account, some sort of a stupid pleasure in the world that people will laugh at my joke or something like that. That's what I'm interested in. So the person doesn't want any pleasures in the world whatsoever. All he's interested in is he feels the oneness of God. He feels the source of his soul. I remember something that really interested me before I was religious, a long time ago, hypnotism. It really interested me. You can hypnotize a person that he can feel all of these pleasures. And you know what? You can know it from a dream. You have dreams. We have tremendous pleasure in the dream. Nothing happened whatsoever. So all these pleasures that you get are like 90% state of mind. There's some people that say it's 100%, but the whole world is a state of mind, which is pretty ridiculous. Because so the mind is also a state of mind. Where's your mind come from? Your imagination. Okay. And anyway. But still, the fact of the matter is all the pleasures of the world are 90% bluff anyway, right? It's just what you think that they are. So when you feel godliness, you feel reality. You feel the source of yourself. Therefore, the men of the Great Assembly, they established what's called the blessings of Kriya Shema. There's blessings before we religious people. There's an order to prayer. There's a prayer book. It was established by the people of the Great Assembly. And the prayers, first of all, it starts off with these Psalms of King David, and then it gets up to what's Shema Yisrael. You say Shema Yisrael, that's like the height of the emotional height of the prayer, Shema Yisrael. But right before you say Shema Yisrael, there's two blessings that you say. They're long blessings. And what are the long blessings? There's two blessings before, Yotzer Or. One of them is called Yotzer Or. And there it talks about at great length what the angels do, how the angels are all burning up, and there's angels which are called Chayot, how they are totally negated to God, and there's angels called Yotzer Meshartim that God creates all the time, and Asher Meshartov, angels which are constantly, here he says, Yotzer Meshartim, these are Shekama Elef, Variboy, Ravavos, Nivroim, that there are millions and millions of these angels which are created every day because of their tremendous love for God. They have fire, so they burn up. Calling V'nisrafim, these angels, these Yotzer Mesharsim, these are angels that God forms. These angels are burning up to God. They burn up to God all the time. The Chozer Mischachim, and God returns and creates them brand new. Those are the Yotzer Mesharsim. Then there's other angels that talks about in this first blessing. Asher Masharso, angels which always serve God. Mishesh Shemei Bereshis, from the beginning of the creation, many billions and millions of angels. It says there's tens of hundreds of thousands of angels in every whatever is a group of angels, and there's an unlimited number of groups. So in every group, what's it called? Every host, not a host, there's a better word, camp. Every camp, there's even a better word for camp, like a battalion. Every battalion of angels, it says that there's hundreds of millions of angels in every, what is it, El Rivra Avavos, it says 10,000, 10 times 10,000. What's 10,000 times 10,000? 10,000 times 10,000 is 100 million? 100 million. So there's 100 million, let's say, angels in every battalion, and there's an infinite number of battalions. So how many angels are there? So it says that there's no number to the angels, like it says in the Gemara. All of these angels, the angels that God creates brand new every day, and the angels that have been serving constantly from the sixth creation. And there's an infinite number of them. All of them are Maritzim. All of them are doing one thing. They're praising God. Because they understand that they know and they understand that they're the existence of God. And this, what do they understand of God? God's name. They don't even understand God's essence, just God's name. Like, for instance, the name of a person, She'eno Etzem, it's not his essence. Ela Eze, but it is just a ray of his existence. Kadesh Yochel Zulasos, so someone else can call him by the name. This is called Or Ein Sof. What's creating all these angels? The light of the infinite one of God. Klomer, in other words, just a little ray of godliness alone, like a sort of, how do you say, a little flicker or something like that. It spreads out like a little of a beam of light that comes from the sun, like it says in another place. And all these angels get this little beam of godliness. It's watered down like a million times, and they freak out, these angels. They say Kodesh. They go, God is holy. In other words, God is separate totally from them. Because it says, Malchus Malchus Kolomim, it says to God, your kingship is the kingship of all the worlds. Kingship is the lowest aspect of God, and that's the highest aspect of all the worlds. Shakol Chayat, that all the life force, this is what we're supposed to be thinking, right? Tomorrow morning, before you start to pray, you can think about this or whatever you want to. But it's a good, there's two things about what you think, and there's another one thing is what you think, another thing is where you think. You want to do this contemplation, right? You can do it anywhere you want to, but like don't do it in the middle of the street or while you're driving in your car or something, because you have to have a little bit of sort of removal from the world. So it's because you start to realize that our life is like a little ray from these angels. And these angels, that's even a smaller ray from the essence of God. And the angels, they're screaming out, going berserk to God, and we're crazy about nothing. What are we crazy about? Right? Somebody scratches our car, we go crazy. Lachayos calling Ivroim, that this is the whole entire world comes from this little ray of godliness to enliven everything. Lios Memali call him that God fills all the worlds. And how God fills the worlds, it's not like the soul fills the body. Shehi mitlabesh is because the soul is affected by the body. It's in the body. Which is not case. God says, Ani Hashem lo shenisi. God says, I never change. God, you are the one before the world was created. You are the one after the world was created. But all of the worlds, Makablim Chayosam, they receive their life and their very existence and their blessing, whatever happens in the world, from just God's kingship. This is the lowest aspect, of a ray of godliness outward. So we're talking about God. We start little by little, you start to realize God is not just another one of the characters in the Bible, the biggest one, right? The most powerful, the most mysterious of all is God. Right? He's another one of a character in the. I remember when I was a little kid, there was this movie, The Ten Commandments, right? So Charlton Heston was one guy, and then God was the other one. If I'm not mistaken, God's voice was Charlton Heston's voice also, right? Likuti. Or kamo, like a mushal, like sorry. So what is God really? What did the Jews really hear? What did Abraham hear when God spoke to them? We don't know. It was so intense, so real, infinitely more real than what you're hearing now from me, or even if I stood face to face to you or whatever. Like for instance, also when a person, a person's intellect and his emotions, they are the essence, so to speak, of a person. But that a person is like, let's say, a leader, a king, a boss. This is only from him outside. It doesn't really touch the person's essence. He's just as above everybody. This is the lowest level of a person. Right? Go and tell the painters that they should paint the do another coat of paint, right? He doesn't know who the painters are. They don't know who he is. There's no personality in Rages. He paid the people money. They'll do whatever he says. So he goes on and says, put another coat of paint over here. I'll pay you double pay. What do you say? It was some sort of a personal thing that he had. He just was ruling over them. That's all. He's telling them what to do. Right? No, nothing, I say, human involved in it whatsoever. Also the same thing with God. God's kingship that he is over the worlds. It's just like a ray of godliness whatsoever to the creations. There's no king. A king can't be a king unless he has a people. But the fact is, the people are totally incomparable to the king. Right? Rabbi Mendel Futterfass, he told me that he heard a story that he didn't know if it was Napoleon or it was the Tsar. He had to go over some sort of a river or a stream or whatever it was, and there was no bridge, and he was in his. So his soldiers immediately, without thinking, they just laid down in the water so that he could walk over, that his carriage would go over. The ones on the bottom, they died. He couldn't care less. They couldn't care less. The king, you don't think about anything. You just, the king is, everybody is nothing in front of the king. Here we're talking about God as a king. He enlivens us. He gives us life. He creates us. That's the lowest aspect of God. It's his kingship. That's what we say in our prayers, that God creates these things, angels called kadoshim, holy angels, and they're praising your name forever. Shekol hashavach, that all of the praise of God is only your name. We'll see. Let's see. That all of the praise of God. The Hilulim, this is because of it's only just God's name is called on the creations. And this is forever. This goes on forever. She'einu mislabesh, it's not clothed and revealed in them. This power that creates them and that enlivens them is not anything they can really grasp or identify with. It's, so to speak, this godliness is far away. That's why they're all screaming out to God. Like it says, Kihu Tziba v'niru. God just commanded and the world was created. So to speak, God did not invest any energy whatsoever in creating the world. He made the angels, the stars, the planets, he made them eternal. What does it mean, Tziva v'niru? That God commanded and the world was created as though they created themselves automatically from nothing to something by means of a commandment. That's why God is incomprehensible, because he wants it to be that way. He wants the world to seem like it's something from nothing. This is what enlivens all the worlds, from nothing to something. This is just what's called God's kingship, or God, the breath of God's mouth. He creates everything. So as real as we think we are, and we are real to a certain degree, God's creating us, the angels are infinitely more real. God's creating them from an infinitely higher level. And as real as they are, they realize that they are absolutely nothing compared to the Creator himself. So it's not that there are three things. There's us, and then there's the angels, and then there's God. All there is God. But how God does it is a tremendously incredible miracle. We should just feel so tremendously fortunate, but also we should be in awe. And here the Rebbe says that we get fortunate means you're fortunate that God created me, but I can also do whatever I want to. I'm fortunate that I'm a thief. Not everybody can be a thief, right? I'm fortunate that I'm strong. I can beat people up. I can scare people. Also, that you can be fortunate. You can give thanks to God. It says a thief prays to God for success before he steals. It says in the Gemara. And so there's another thing is loving God. Once you love God, then you don't want to go against God. Exactly the opposite. You don't want anything for yourself. You love God. Says that's the whole thing of the Ruach Pi, though God created the world from his breath. That's the breath that came from his mouth outside. It, so to speak, seems to be that it's outside of him. Even though that the breath of God comes from his inside, but it seems as though it's something separate from him. That's the way God made the world. That's what it says God spoke, so that the world would seem to be separate. So this is just God's kingship. God, that's just God is called a king on the worlds. That's how far away God's reality is from us. So when we feel that we are real, and we start realizing that we are just creations, and we're not even creations like the angels, suddenly we start to realize how amazing God is, and that God wants us to appreciate him. Then we have a tremendous love. That's what it says. God is infinitely far away. And that's the tremendous love that we have for God. That's with that we win the war. We win the war. We call the godly soul, and that wins this battle against normalcy, against false egotism, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.